In an earlier tutorial, we created something like this, where we are visualizing the population per healthcare facility in each community district in New York City, where a darker color means that there are fewer healthcare facilities per person. So I'm going to prepare this map to export it and be able to put it somewhere else, like a blog post, into a report, anywhere I would like to present this map to an external audience. So I'm going to make some changes to the styling of both layers, where I've got both this underlying layer, which is just the community districts with a single symbol, and this layer on top, which is the symbolized community districts that have actual values for the population per healthcare facility. I'm going to double click here on the bottom layer, and I'm going to rename it just to make things a little clearer, and I want to distinguish my two layers. So I'll just call this the base map. And here I'm going to relabel this population per healthcare facility. So now you can see that my layers are renamed. Now I'm going to make a little bit more edits to the styling to get it looking a little more polished. I'm going to double click the base map and symbology, and I'm going to make this a darker gray color. So to do that, I'll just click here in color and then select a darker gray that I'd like, one that's not so purple. Where it says current, that's going to be the new color. And I can actually save that custom color by clicking on this blue arrow, and then it's going to allow me to reuse that color in other layers. And I'm going to click OK and apply to see how it looks. It's actually quite dark, so I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I will keep it. Now I'm going to adjust the symbology a bit for my layer of population per healthcare facility. And I'll do that by clicking up here on symbol. The style settings for symbol up here are going to apply to all of the other buckets. So if I edit the outline here, it's going to apply to every shape, even if there's already a gradient applied. So I'm just going to make the boundaries, let's say, a little bit thicker of a line. I'll do that by clicking here on simple fill, and I'm going to be editing the stroke settings. So instead of 0.26 millimeters, which is the default setting, I'll make this 0.35. And I'm going to click the stroke color and use that same gray that I just created. It's a little hard to see because it's very similar to the background of the actual window, but I'll click that and I've got my gray. And when I apply those settings, that it looks a little nicer with the background color of my map that I've used. This is definitely not perfect, but I'm going to stick with it for now. And instead of this orangey brown color ramp, I'm going to just choose reds, which is a pretty standard color ramp where a darker color represents some sort of risk or problem. In this case, that there aren't a lot of healthcare facilities per person. And I'll apply those reds. And this is what I end up with. I am now going to use a tool called the print layout in order to prepare this map to export it out of QGIS and into a different program. I'm not going to worry about creating a title. I'll just use the layout here and start with add map. I'll simply draw a rectangle and it's going to display my map. I can make it bigger if I want. I can move it around. Right now, the map shows up as quite centered and I've got the whole extent there. But let's say I had used the pan tool and my map was off center when I created my print layout. It would actually appear something like this. And so a way I can adjust that is by moving it back into the main extent, or right-clicking here for zoom to layers. And then I'll use this button here with the orange arrow that's pointing down, which says set map extent to match main canvas extent, and it'll reset the boundaries of the map. Now I'm going to add in a legend, and I'll use this tool over here, which is called Add Legend. I'll also draw a rectangle, and a default legend is going to appear here with all of the same layers that are in my map project. And here I'll click on legend and then item properties. And I'll be able to edit what appears. For example, I really don't need base map symbolized here because it's just the shape of New York City. It doesn't actually have any encoded information or any values that the viewer needs to pay attention to. So I'm going to unclick auto update, and then I'll be able to edit the layers that display in here. So now I've got a pretty good legend. Here it says population per healthcare facility because I renamed my layer to better represent what the data actually is. And let's say I wanted to edit how these values show up and I wanted them to contain commas. I could just double click here, and then in the symbology menu, I can edit the actual legend and I can add commas in here. I'll click OK. And then it will automatically update here in the print layout. I'm now going to add a title by drawing a rectangle where I'd like it and then editing the text. And my title is going to ask a question that the audience will be able to understand the answer to by looking at my map. I'll click here where it says font under appearance to make the title bigger. I'll make it 20 points and bold. And move it where I would like. Try to get things nice and aligned. And then I'll add some information about my source. Any map should tell you where the data comes from. From there, I'll type something like this for my sources. I might need to do some more specification, but I'm keeping it simple for this example. And now I'm going to say that this is ready to export. I'm going to move everything a little farther over to the left-hand side. And now I'll export this all as a PDF. I'll call it population per healthcare facility. I'm going to save it with the default settings. And now it's going to appear here in my file folder, ready to use wherever I would like.